in business for a long time. And Indonesia and Malaysia are the biggest Muslim population in the world. When you talk about Islamic banking, factors influencing it, why don't you also talk about why don't you make it a mixed method so that we have the statistical figures, knowing that we have the majority of Muslims in Uganda involved in business. Number two, we have been hearing about the interest rate that is zero on the banking system. Can you also include that in your research? Or what do you say about that as a factor influencing Islamic banking? Thank you.
Thank you. I will continue with the question to Hakim. It's a very interesting study, but being that you mentioned something about bias, people thinking that it's enshrined in Sharia law. So I'm wondering, in your recommendations, what is it that you offer to make sure that this bias is either reduced or done away with? Then Dixon, I'm wondering whether you tell us how contemporary parenting roles have changed over the last few decades, because women have gone out in the workplace, and the men are also out. But currently, some women are earning more than their husbands, and very few of them are willing to sit down and do the parenting. So probably if you also tell us about that. Then Uthman, you talked. I realized that you're a philosophy student. I did philosophy so many years ago, but I'm wondering, as you're doing this study, do you think it's time now for us as Africans to enhance on the African philosophy, especially in solving our problems? Because for some reason we have, it looks like war is created for us in Africa. In a slight thing, someone is going to the bush and all kinds of things. So do you think, as a student of philosophy, that right now is the right time for us to, work on that? Thank you.
Let me use the mic for them so they don't keep standing up. While I pass on the mic, I have a question for the doctor seated next to me, Mr. Tom, Dr. Tom. Is it the makeup? There are many changes of names that we're branding all these poverty alleviation. Is it the change of names or change of makeup? How do we, I keep wondering, what is the solution? Like, should we just change the name or not? Parenting experts, my question to you is, you gave certain challenges like IVF, we are going to the sperm banks. Is it the method of bringing the child in the world that has a challenge? Or it's actually the upbringing? Because people have adopted kids, you have no idea where the background is. But it seems adoption is more accepted than IVF or sperm bank. But you still don't know the makeup of the child. And lastly, and he'll start the questions. I am a banker, plus being that I went to a Muslim school, Nabisusa, though I'm a Christian. I was just wondering, why aren't you including financial institutions? When we were in the bank, we actually did some homework when Islamic banking. There is always what you call elephant in the room. It is happening. It will happen sooner or later. We'll have Islamic banking in this country. but you're looking for experts. Some of us have done banking for a while. Don't you just need to train us in what exactly Islamic banking is, and then that step is dealt with? Thank you. And you start, you just keep passing on the mic.
Helen, some announcement. Thank you. It's about time check. We expected at the dining in the next 8 minutes. We have 8 minutes to be for our lunch. Thank you.
And I think I will use one. From the last one, let me make this clear. I'm realizing why surely we should do Islamic banking research, because people are excited just by even listening to the concept. Because my study was specifically on the integration of the IBF education in higher education institutions. But because people are eager to know, they are now asking beyond the integration. You feel why NEMRA has to come and become the solution to the problem, rather than being now the problem to the solution. Why not include financial? This was research. Research, you need to be particular. You can't address everything. I couldn't address everything. But I think the best recommendation is that your suggestion can be an area of further research. I think I've answered. Bias, my brother, my fellow candidate. Bias, on how do you deal with bias? I think it was from my sister. Bias, that still can be area of further research. But in my recommendation, I put it, the Doi theory guided my study. When we communicate well what real Islamic banking is through research, seminars, people will get the perception. Because even when you read my paper, I took perception in my literature review as something that's very important. We need to deal with people's perception. And that was in my paper, so I answer the bias issue like that. Someone was also talking about factors influencing, like why not talking about the interest issue. Still, this was just a presentation of 10 minutes. It could not pull up the whole issue, but I invite you to my paper. I talked about the concept of interest. Actually, my paper goes further to give an insight of what makes the conventional banking system different from the Islamic banking system. And that's why I called for Sharia. We need to have the human capital, which is good both in Sharia and also in the conventional banks. Because there is no way you are going to integrate or to have knowledgeable people who are only sided on one angle. And that's why for us, normally Muslims, we say that it's good to take your child in schools that have both sides to get that experience. So the factors of interest, I've worked on it. The issue of Indonesia, Malaysia, why not mixed method to do quantitative? Why didn't I bring the quantitative to bring areas of further research? I preferred qualitative. But still, the quantitative, the reason why that studies of Islamic finance in Uganda, I'm recommending that from the papers that I've read through, I'm recommending they should be qualitative, because really, quantitative-wise, we may not have that sufficient exposure, specifically in Uganda, relating to studies, because even at MOOBS, it is there is a late researcher called Juma, Dr. Kawase, Professor Kawase. They are the ones who made that study of Islamic banking, and actually it's part of my references. If you look in it, they made the study of adoption of Islamic banking in non or something like non-Islamic oriented. They made the study. So we have few sources of information, and the best now should be qualitative, such that you get the information right from the right people. That's why you see I adopted the focused group discussions and interviews. And I think The other issues of latest, I would take the other issues to be comment. I would thank the brother, I don't know the names, but I'm so privileged that whatever he has told me really beefs up my paper. And I'm going to go back, do the corrections, and maybe one day I will publish in another journal. And these have been insightful. And lastly, because the minute is gone, the rest of the comments really are taking them in good heart. I'm going to improve on my book, I mean my paper. But do whatever you want to do, or think the way you want to think, because this is open society. But the concept of Islamic finance should be approached with government stakeholders with due attention. Because whatever we want to do, now the funders have shifted to be the Middle East. It's now where the funds are coming from. It is now from Asia and the Gulf. Now Americans are no longer, and those guys in the Gulf and Asia, if they are to give you their money, you must comply with their requirements. Don't you see, is it Islamic Development Bank? They are the ones who are now funding much of our roads. We can't run away from them. So high time niche came, National Council of Higher Education came, do research, provide exchange programs, and also enable this community to have that comfortable academic area where we can really juggle to ensure that this becomes a reality in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You had promised 1 minute. You have used 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Sorry for that.
Yes, I appreciate all the comments and the recommendations from the discussant, who actually happened to motivate me to study philosophy the other time you taught us. And it's from there that I picked. Yes, I'm going to take 1 minute. My sister Barbara said, why wouldn't I look at pragmatism? And I did mention that today's trends of post-conflict studies are empirical. Now, my confusion here is that if I use those terms, we are saying we also need to simplify them. And I think that's why Professor Gad said, sometimes it's difficult to understand and interpret them when it's our first time. I agree. And then why can't you use research questions for this study? I agree. And I think I had it, but unfortunately...
Excuse me a little bit.
Yes, please.
I'm requesting that the comments that came from your discussants, you take them as to beef or to make your changes on your papers, but you answer the specific questions.
Yes. Yeah.
What the discussant told you, that one, take it, and then just pick a particular specific question. That's the one.
Exactly, I have taken that. Does war mean peace? I mean, does end of war mean peace? Why don't you use interpretativism? Yes, you can't use interpretativism alone in post-war. Why? Check Hulier and Hufler, who talked about greed and grievances as a sustenance of war. It originates from regression, statistical analysis, to determine the GDP of the society. And the assumption is that when the GDP is less than 3, chances are that war will be sustained. But then when you say interpretativism, that relies on experience and narrative and interpretation of the researcher. We can't deduce that statistically. And then probably the last one, positivism and constructivism, which one is used more? Actually, the intricacies of this study is that they must be applied both. That's why I talked about positivism and constructivism. Why? Because post-war interventions require accurate development needs that prevent further occurrence to avoid a situation called negative peace. Do you think it is time now to use African philosophy for peace building? Yes. Unfortunately, my study, the slides were not there. There's what we call Egyptology, there's Ubuntu, gachachas were used, they originate from African philosophy of peace building. And actually, those are the areas that we need to look. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, members, for your comments. I take them in good faith, and they will help to improve my paper. Someone was saying that these results wishes or academic issues. I won't say the academic issues because I got them from the literature that I reviewed. So they are scientific. When you're presenting, you don't put everything there. What you're asking about, are you interested in finding out the behaviors of parents? I want to say it's not only behaviors of parents, maybe that could be one of the emerging issues in this contemporary world. Then Ikinyi was asking whether about the changing roles. I think, yes, the truth is that there are changing roles because these days we know that there are ladies who are earning more than their husbands, and of course you find that they are the ones who are doing much of the of home support. And of course now these days you also have men who are not working and they are being supported by their wives. But generally still men are still the heads of their families, though with feminism and other issues about women employment, there are a paradigm shift which we cannot just ignore. Then Helen, you're asking about the issues of IV and adoption. I think I will look at it and look at it further. Maybe it could be an issue of further study. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, you did me a favor the other time to give me to rush through my work, but I think I appreciate that. And you made me love Makerere. I was here for my bachelor's in 1980s, then the master's in 1990s, and Makerere, I think, we're hosted in the right place, and all that has transpired has added much value on me. About one theory, I think I said I've used the governance and public political perspective, and I thought probably principal agent theory would do for me. But also there are institutional issues which I think I should. I think perhaps institutional theory could also help me to interrogate some of these institutional capacity issues in terms of handling this wealth creation interventions. What sort of institutional frameworks do we have in place in terms of policies, regulations, and the compliance requirements, whether they have been institutionalized enough to handle these interventions. Conceptual model, I'll try to do some improvement on that. Cross-sectional, perhaps longitudinal would have been better to see how over time some of these interventions have led to what they are now. But I think in terms of feasibility and resources and time, it was not possible. So that's why I prefer the cross-sectional. Rebranding, you're just renaming. Some of these have been improvements on the earlier ones, as much as they are targeting wealth creation. Like for the PDM model, you find that now it is being managed at the parish level, at the local level, as compared, for example, to Operation Wealth Creation, which was handled with, of course, our friends of the military and so on. And some people were arguing that, why the military? Even if it's the military, let them be professional people, like the agriculture extension workers who are knowledgeable about some of those sectors or intervention areas. Then in terms of financial literacy, I think government needs to do a lot in that area. I remember in the 1960s, we had this adult education, where people could learn about some of these financial literacy issues in the local booklet written in local languages. I think people need the knowledge in that area, because when they get this money, they just end up using it for other purposes. I think we also have a poor investment culture within us, to the extent that we don't tend to save. Then I think other people have pointed out that there are other alternatives other than giving these financial handouts. For example, in Europe, I was in UK, Birmingham University for my PhD, and this is the European Union They subsidize, give farm inputs, and they make also accessibility to the markets easier. So people, even without being given these handouts, if they are given the right environment, they can create wealth for themselves without necessarily getting this handout, so that can be misused. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we clap for them? They've done their part, and they will do more. So thank you very much. I think I am still, they said it's lunchtime, the 8 minutes are up. So we'll see you later here in about 30 minutes. I was told 3:30 for the next session. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Pardon? You want to pay for our lunch? Yeah. Pray. Okay, I said pay that one as you're hiring.
Let's pray for our lunch. Father, we thank you so much for the session that we have just finished. And as we go for lunch, my Master, pray that you bless it and sanctify it with your precious blood, that it might nourish our bodies and bless us. In Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen.
You're done, eh? Yeah, he's there. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. A special announcement. The online participants who are supposed to present in room 2, that is Professor Adebayo, Professor Kofo, Dr. Jean Baptiste, Mr. Charles Senega, Dr. Tendai, Dr. Ateyora. Kindly, we can have Dr. Chris Adebayo presenting first. We are waiting. Just let us know if you're hearing us so that we can start off with your presentation. The chairperson of that session, I think, is here, and Dr. Salam is also here to discuss your paper. Professor Adebayo Chris, are you able to hear us? Dr. Adebayo? Or any other person ready who was in that category that I've read, kindly join in.
Thank you so much, and I'm Dr. Jean Baptiste, and I'm connecting my laptop so that I'm using the laptop to see present. You can allow me then, and that'll be fine.
Dr. Jean, are you able to present? Or Dr. Chris, are you able to present? Okay, there you go, Dr. Chris. Yes, please share your screen.
Are you seeing my screen?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. I don't know. Can you? We are not yet able to see your slides.
Are you seeing the screen now?
Not yet. You.
Are you seeing the screen now? Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, we can see your screen. You can start and you have 10 minutes.
I will do that. The paper is on online learning and research advanced and continuing education in contemporary Nigeria. My name is Professor the presentation will take the following objectives and methodologies on contemporary Nigeria in the open market. Then, briefly on the and then from strategies for research, teaching, and learning. Then the prime challenges and opportunities for sustainable online education. I will give a comparison and effectiveness for credentialing and in the labor market. Then I will summarize and make recommendations. Introduction. Online classes have shifted from a mere novelty to mainstream form of education in the contemporary world. By 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic pushed millions of learners, researchers, and teachers to adapt and adopt this approach. In 2018, just about 3.3 million students and lecturers make use of online for learning, research, and whatever. The figure is several folds by 2020, and today it is getting to an exponential proportion. It is certainly unique in some respects. This paper ruminates over the contemporary tertiary education, particularly university education, with views to making suggestions for sustainable education using online learning. The work applied on empirical methods, considering that reflection, personal observation, and any authority or experience are just as good as vulnerable for knowledge acquisition and empirical data. Am I there?
Yes, we are hearing.
Contemporary Nigeria, the country obtained its independence in 1960. That was 160 years ago. The country is adjudged to be the sixth most populous and the national state inhabited by more than 250 ethnic groups, speaking almost about 500 distinct languages. The country has very many manufacturing industries as of today, but it will be better. But electronic industries, particularly those that will be able to produce computer and computer-related gadgets, are very few. The only one is Siemens. And Siemens, as of today, I don't know, I couldn't confirm that before this research. I don't know to what extent it's operating. The government has majority control of the university education, and but the focused educational system has not engendered sustainable human capital development as expected of a 60-year-old country. Dependence on the external world for satellite and related digital technologies is still very obvious.
Professor Bayowa, we have lost you. Our presenter, we've lost you. Kindly get back for you to proceed with your presentation. Professor Chris, you're muted. Kindly unmute yourself. Our presenter, you've muted yourself. Kindly unmute. We want to hear your presentation. And your screen, we want to see your slides.
Are you hearing me now? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now, but you share your slides, please, for you to proceed.
Are you seeing this screen now?
Not yet.
Okay. Just a moment. It should be seeing the screen now. Are you seeing the screen now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. There are some incoherences. Namely, the universities and the country lag behind prevalent emerging global community. The education budget has been so meager in the last few years. Lack of strategic manpower planning, brain drain, which is popularly referred to here as JAPA, poor motivation, unconducive environment, corruption with staff, low productivity, poor quality of teaching, overcrowding in our classrooms, poor quality of education, insecurity are bound in every nook and cranny of this country. Be done. That is Joint Admission and Matriculation Board can take just a small proportion of the candidates that are applying for admission each year. Unless there could be different approaches and methodology, it may be impossible to attain the objectives of the universities to meaningfully contribute to national development. How best can we realize sustainable human capital development for the nation, therefore? It can only be through online education. More so, with the potential learners willing to hold on to their jobs and experience tertiary education at the same time. Therefore, what is this online learning? The online learning, I don't need to be perambulating about this, requires that a student or a learner or a researcher has a laptop or a computer to work with. And he has to have organized time to be able to organize himself for his work or any other thing, and to be able to do his research and learning. It has some advantages, and the advantages are those that are listed there, about 8 of them. The benefits are gradually overshadowing a traditional classroom program. It can no longer be ignored by any community. The strategies for research, teaching, and learning are as enumerated here. Well, I've mentioned some of them, but learners must be clear ahead by trying to find out early what is needed to be prepared and troubleshoot ahead. Learner must stay connected with the lecturer, the teacher, to understand what is going on from time to time. Students need not to hesitate to let the instructor know if an unexpected technical issues, like I have today now, occur. You can get connected to your lecturer, your instructor, your supervisor. Students should have acceptable backup plan in mind for internet connectivity in particular. Like today, like I tell you what I'm using now, it is very funny. I'm using both inverter, I'm using solar and solar, just to be able to get connected. In spite of that, my energy is very low now on the computer. Students may not be able to get ahead of all possible technical problems, but a little attempt to think ahead will make him or her to be comfortable. The strategies continue here. But the question that one may ask is, what are the prime challenges for sustainable online research, teaching, and learning? And these are the problems. The problems are the technical issues, so that the students should be able to prepare, or the researchers should be able to prepare to assess its device and get connected as required. Time is an issue. Usually, time is the only thing that is equally given to every being, 24/7. No cheating, per day, 24 hours. So it is now left to an individual researcher or student to be able to adjust himself to that 24 hours. First, he must be able to identify time waster and burn them out. He should be able to break down his responsibility by weekly, daily, or hourly, and establish his routine accordingly. It may be possible to enlist who can help, who are disturbance. If you add it to be your household, it could be your wife, your spouse, your neighbor, and so on, in case you add challenges. it is a waste of time to actually be multitasking. It is better to focus on a particular task at a time. Then there could be digital challenges, digital literacy challenge. Students need certain degree of technological proficiency and information. Choosing a school is very important. Some school institutions, they don't have the facility. But when you think ahead, you'll be able to know where you will be able to get all this online programs and so on like that. It is important for learners, researchers, to understand how the structures are passing information to them. Then some languages online are fairly poor. For example, like I'm highlighting here as red, it could be offensive to the reader. Sometimes when you are writing capital, it could be offensive to the reader. Students can learn, however, how to work at the university library or any reputable information and communication technology center. When you compare the credentials or network that come out of online programs and normal formal classroom programs, you come to realize that they are virtually the same. Particularly in the recent time, it looks like the online programs are even becoming more important, more popular, more preferred than the normal classroom programs. And when you look at your community, for example, learners, researchers are either combining normal classroom programs with online programs, or they prepare online programs to the normal classroom programs. The classroom programs could be very expensive sometimes. If you have to move, for example, to the location of your classroom, you have to take an accommodation there and you have to pay for it. That is in addition to the tuition and other expenses. Whereas you can stay in your house, the comfort of your house, either in your sitting room or in one of your rooms, and you carry out your research. Like I said earlier, the credentials are the same, the certificates are the same, the results of your thesis, they are the same. In conclusion, there is a renaissance occurring in higher education now, and it is online learning. Online learning is a flexible learning opportunity. It allows learners, researchers to undergo requisite courses, pass them, and acquire credentials, supportive and in a supportive sustainable environment. It is suitable for those that are interested in the post-COVID development and at the same time working for the country. The onus is on the government to make the internet connectivity readily available and affordable in all human administrative rooms and counties of the country. Government and philanthropists may have to support the establishment of more companies that will be assembling computer and computer plants in the country. It is time too that government tackle the challenges of insecurity, electricity, and power error. Government can award scholarships, loans, and support citizens pursuing online programs as part of efforts towards national human capacity development. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Wow, thank you so much, Professor Debayo, for that very beautiful research you've done. Your presentation is a real testament of the challenges of online education. But we are happy that you've managed to come to the end, despite the different challenges before.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for the patience. So I think we are just going to use 5 minutes to get comments, and then your discussant, so that we go next to another person who has been waiting to present, who is Dr. Jean from Rwanda. I think you have some questions, Dr. Wilbur. First, okay, discusser. Okay, let's first get some questions from the participants.
Thank you very much, Dr. Juliet. Do you have any questions from the participants? I just have comments. Okay. Yes? Okay. Mr. Mujib.
Yes, thank you so much for the well-presented paper. So my concern is, do you think we can adopt online teaching as being used in advanced country, and the certificate issued will be recognized? Of recent, in Nigeria and some West African countries, we learned that people could not access the internet. There are many theories. They said there are some people fighting in the Middle East, and that one is affecting West Africa. So with that kind of setback, is there any hope in the nearest future that we can have a standalone online or virtual university that may not have physical structure? So that's my question. Thank you.
Yes, Professor, you can answer that one before we can make other comments. Thank you. Professor Adbaye?
If you make a comment on that. Hello?
We can't hear you.
Yeah, but I'm hearing you.
Oh, you got in the
hearing
question?
me?
Dr. Mujib.
No, I am hearing you.
Okay, my question is, as we have in Western world and possibly, you had the question.
I had your question.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, but my comment on that is this. You know, when you look at some other developing countries, let's leave out Africa now. Asia, in the Asiatic countries, there are some countries that were like us, that now overtaken us in terms of we can call development. Our major challenge, for example, in Nigeria, is city and power. But if there are some organizations, even in Nigeria, there are secondary schools and primary schools that were doing online programs. During COVID-19, nearly all the universities jumped to online programs at the end of the day, particularly all the private universities. The only talent could be this internet, but people have means of circumventing it. You buy data, and if they are buying data, it cannot be as much as when you go to the normal classrooms. Even in normal classrooms, they are also going online. They are posting questions, assignments to their students. And the students are giving the feedback online. So I don't see anything that would prevent us from getting there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. I think I can make some. Oh, yeah, Dr. Joy. Now, okay, I think I can now give some comments that actually online learning has been adopted in different institutions and for different courses, and it has some advantages, although with some limitations, but also with a lot of opportunities. And I just want to make it clear that during COVID-19, when we had that pandemic, online learning was the way forward from as early as kindergarten, nursery schools, primary and secondary and universities, and postdocs. They were actually using a lot of online. So it brings the world to your living room, but also it avoids some costs. For instance, in Kampala here, jam is just another epidemic. So you can avoid the jam here and there and catch up with the different online courses, and also avoid risks. And then also you are able to share knowledge, skills, and practices that are across borders with ease. And obviously we know that some of the challenges you may face is that you need to, first of all, be with the knowledge how to use gadgets like the computer, but also you need steady stream internet and airtime, data. Those are some of the costs actually that may make online studying a little bit challenging. But also you need also to get hands-on use of the gadgets, and then it is time limiting, because if it's 1 hour and you tune like your Zoom link for 1 hour, it is 1 hour. Eventually it goes off, it can limit you. You have to have a lot of concentration. We know that sometimes also in an environment where you have overcrowding, it may be good. In the surgical world, we have what we call Google Glasses. As I'm operating and looking at the patient's wound, so many people are viewing me internationally to see what I usually do. So it has been adopted in different areas. But also there are limitations in terms of hands-on practical skills may be very difficult. Sometimes you may be seeing in one view and there are so many dimensions. So, and then power. When areas where you don't have steady power, life becomes a bit of a challenge. You need to have alternatives, alternative sources of power to power your gadgets. And then also education on a number of platforms like Zoom, Twitter Space, and the rest. So you may need to keep updating yourself and even your gadgets, and you move forward. So with those few comments, I want to thank Professor, and I want to hand over to Dr. Juliet to make the final remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Chris Adebayo. This is a very timely study, and I think you are a testament of this. And I agree with you on the challenges raised, but I was kind of curious. I wanted to find out what kind of research design did you employ? I thank you. So you can answer that, and then we move to the next presenter. Thank you.
Well, to be precise, it was just a descriptive research, and it was based on literature search. Did you hear me? Did you hear me?
This is Dr. Juliet again. We've not had your feedback.
I said it was descriptive. It is based research. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Thank you so much, Professor Chris.
Professor Chris. Professor Chris. Professor Chris. Professor Chris. Professor Chris. Professor Chris. I'm using my
Thank you so much. Yes. Can you just say one final word and then we move to the next?
Yes, I'm listening.
Okay, I think let's move on to the next presenter. Dr. Jean, kindly share your slides and you start off. You'll have only 10 minutes.
Thank you so much for the floor. Can Dr. Chris, first of all, remove his screen so that I may also be able to display mine? Because they can't be displayed. Yes. Then you let me know whether you can see it, please.
Perfectly, very well, but put it in presentation mode. Thank you.
Exactly, that's all.
Thank you.
That's all.
Can start off.
Yes. The topic or the title of my presentation, my study is Scrutinizing Communication Gaps, Bridging Efforts by Universities Language Centers in Rwanda, with the case study being AUCA, UTB, and UNILAC. The three are universities operating here in Rwanda. Maybe a word of introduction. I'm Jean-Baptiste Manirakiza, a PhD candidate at Kabale University in Uganda. And the study wanted to, of course, to find out the efforts invested in bridging communication gaps between students at university level. And as far as introduction is concerned, Rwanda, for those who have never been to Rwanda, Rwanda is home to many languages, but mainly Kinyarwanda being predominant, English and French being the official languages. Then, as Kaigema and Mutasa highlight, before 1994, French was the medium of instruction. And then in 2008, English became the medium of instruction at all the schools of school levels. And then universities in Rwanda receive students who come from different backgrounds of life, from some speaking English, French, Portuguese, Kiswahili, Arabic, to mention but a few. These are the kind of students received in this country where the medium of instruction is on English today. As far as the literature review is concerned, Kinyarwanda is spoken by most Rwandans, according to Rurangwa 2012. Language centers may provide courses in languages such as English, Kinyarwanda, French, and Kiswahili. That is according to UTAB. The UTAB being one of the universities here in Rwanda. Then Rwanda and French and France have injected 10 million. That is, those are the statistics being given as far as the efforts to revamp the use of French are concerned. That Rwanda and France have a partnership whereby they want to revamp the use of French. Maybe make sure people in Rwanda may once again learn French after a long period of time without putting more efforts in it. And the university language of instruction is English. When you go to the universities in this country, the medium of instruction is English, like I have already highlighted. And then the people may wonder why it is so interesting to use to teach English. There are several reasons given by a number of sources. One being to make a positive impact. Somewhat when you want to make a positive impact. Teaching English in Rwanda can be a rewarding way to contribute to the local community, helping opportunities for education and employment. Those are some of the advantages. And then when you want to travel, for travel's purpose, people may find it good to also teach and learn English because they know with this, you can easily travel inside Rwanda and immerse oneself in the new culture. Rwanda, with its own culture, you need to have the background of English to easily talk to some Rwandans and get to know. And of course, the gain of professional experience. Teaching English abroad can be a great way. Like abroad, it means like when you teach it. This is another explanation given that when you teach it, it helps gain experience in the field of education and develop valuable skills such as cross-cultural communication and adaptability. That is the literature review continuing. As far as this study is concerned, I've used the transmission model of communication, which states that communication is a linear one-way process in which a sender intentionally transmits a message to a receiver, according to Ellis and Mark Clintock in 1990. And this is how it works. This is how this transmission mode of communication works. The message is recorded, and then the sender, and then the message is channeled, sent to the receiver, and then the receiver will have to try to decode to get the message that is transmitted and get the meaning of what is sent. Of course, in between the two, you can see the noise or simply something that may interfere with the message, with the transmission of the message, effective transmission of the message. And then the statement of the problem. Studies on languages have been conducted in Rwanda, but unfortunately, none of the studies tackled communication gaps among higher learning and international international students in Rwanda. As far as international and national students are concerned, there is no study that tackles these gaps as far as communication is concerned. And then international students find it hard to interact with the non-student communities, like someone from another country who is here. If they want to study, they want to interact with the local communities who are not students, they will find it hard because Kinyarwanda is predominant and English is only spoken by people who have been to school, so it's hard to communicate. So a study on these barriers that hinder communication comes in handy. The justification and the hypothesis, the study will help universities in Rwanda to know the magnitude of the problem to come up with adequate solutions. Recommendations of the study will enable universities in Rwanda to know how to address communication gaps among students. And then the hypothesis, universities' language centers teach more than one language. Universities centers teach languages at a level, a very satisfactory level. To find out the languages taught by universities' language centers in Rwanda, and to indicate the rate at which languages are taught by centers, and of course to suggest how possible communication constraints among students can be addressed. As far as the methodology is concerned, the population of the study was 145 respondents from the 3 universities cited, AWUKA being represented at 79.
We seem to have lost you.
Present by.
Yeah. I think it could be network. Kindly try to share your screen again and proceed. Our presenter, please, we are waiting for you to proceed. Jean, please unmute yourself and complete your presentation.
Hello, meanwhile, as we wait, we made these adjustments. All the presentations that are meant to be in seminar room 2 have been transferred to the auditorium. All room 2 presentations have been transferred to the auditorium, and the presentations of the auditorium have been transferred to room 2. Thank you. Room 1 remains intact. You can proceed.
Yes, let me know if you can hear me, please. My network disturbed me a bit.
Yes, but you share your screen. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me do that. Okay, hope you can see it.
Proceed, please. And you
yes,
have
please.
5 minutes to finish.
Oh yes, I'm finishing. I'm finishing. Let me. Then I was about to tell you about the population of the study, which is 145 respondents, of course, from all these 3 universities represented in this study. And I decided to work on all these 145 because the number was small, and those are the candidates that were studying by the time I went to collect the data. And the methodology, of course, I had to seek consent from the directors of the centers so that we collected data from the respondents, and then the respondents were told about why the study is being conducted. Then they also given their consent. Then the questionnaire and interview documentation, these are the instruments that were used. I had to use SPSS version 20 to analyze the findings. And of course, I had to, with this, I was able to extract the histograms that were used to clearly indicate how the languages are taught at these 3 universities. Ethical consideration, I had to make sure that the information that was got from the respondents was treated with a high level of confidentiality. And the limitation on the one that there was no available records of previous trained candidates to help gauge the trend. You couldn't find the documents written, recorded to help gauge the trend. And the results with this histogram, you can see that the languages taught at these centers, English is predominant. It seems it's as if other languages have no room in the centers. So these led to the conclusion and the recommendations that opening centers for local residents to study languages such as English, French, Kiswahili, Portuguese, Arabic should be a welcome move. The centers should not only teach English, but they should also make sure they put efforts in teaching some other languages and try to mobilize more candidates to join, because this is the only way communication gaps can be broken. And then teaching Kinyarwanda, because it's a language that every Rwandan speaks in each and every corner of the country. They should also teach this language to international students so that it may help them to network with the Rwandans or even interact with the Rwandans should they need services from the local community. And university language centers should keep records of previously trained candidates to measure the advancements. This is the end, and I have to thank you all for your kind attention. If there are any questions, I'm gladly ready to get back to them. Even comments are highly appreciated. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much,
Hello.
Jane, for the presentation. Yes. So let's see if there are some people who might like to ask one or two questions before we listen to the comments. Questions?
Yes, please.
Maybe let me first give my questions. This is Dr. Juliet over here. This is a very good study. Thanks so much, Jean, in looking at the communication gaps. Indeed, as you are presenting, I actually wondered, you said this study involved 140-something participants. Then I asked myself, what could have been your research design? Then I asked myself how you came to that number, that sample size. I thank you. Can take note of the questions, and then maybe we'll give you 1 or 2 minutes to answer.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Jean, for the presentation. Still, I have a question on the sampling. You intend to imply that you did a census since the population was small. But I want to ask, the 45 students, were they from several countries, or one of the country was dominating? And if we have them from multiple countries, but one of the country is dominating, don't you think that the sampling is biased in that way? Then number 2, for the university centers teaching the languages, don't they have a criteria for enrollment? Because in your recommendation, you recommend that they need to teach Kinyarwanda because they are largely teaching English. But I think there should be a criteria. If the students are not interested in Kinyarwanda, for example, but they are interested in English or Swahili or French, why would the centers go ahead to teach what is not demanded? I think maybe demand dictates the supply or the teaching. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If there is no other question, then you can probably...
There's some questions. Thank you very much, Doctor. In your introduction, I actually thought you were trying to promote English teaching. But now when it comes in your recommendations, I see you're recommending Kinyarwanda. So I'm wondering what is actually the problem. And then I also want to inquire, how did you measure your second objective, which was to indicate the rate at which languages are being taught? Thank you.
Please go ahead and you give your feedback in just like 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone who has have asked the questions. This helps me to to know that how this research has some other elements that it has to work on, because this is not the final document. There is still room for polishing. Now, to come to the first question by I guess Dr. Juliet, wishing to know the research design that was used. I'm privileged to say that this is a qualitative research whereby I had to statistically indicate how the languages, which of course communication is held through languages. Without languages, of course, there is no communication. So I had to statistically indicate how the rate at which these languages are taught by these language centers, and then come up with the conclusion that what is hindering the effective communication between international students and national students, as well as the local community, is the fact that some languages are denied access. They are not denied the room. There is no room for their teaching, and so it is a qualitative, a quantitative, and at the same time qualitative, because some of the questions were some of the findings were got through the use of interview as a research instrument, the interview, and this with this interview, this helps me to also answer the question on whether it was biased, a question which was asked on whether this study was not biased, because it did not take into consideration maybe the number of respondents who are responding. Are they only international students? Are they local students? Which number is predominant? And if there are imbalances in terms of respondents in terms of nationalities and so on and the like, don't I think that there are imbalances, the study is biased? The answer is, through the interview, I got to learn that the centers, the candidates that were at the centers, numbers were relatively balancing. You could find international students and local students. Why? Because this English, which is predominant, even Rwandans themselves, they still need to learn it. Not only every Rwandan masters the use of English. So international students, because most of them come from French-speaking countries, especially from the countries such as Gabon, countries such as Cameroon, the French-speaking bloc, and some other countries such as Central African Republic. You find that they want to learn English, but again, to come to, and through this interview, I got to learn that the study was not going to be biased, because the answers came from both Rwandans and international students. And to come to the question of criteria, and are there any criteria used for maybe during the enrollment? Of course, it seems this is a gap. That's why I said this study is still open for more inputs. Like, this can be a recommendation. There should be clear criteria, because the way I saw at the ground when I was there, I could clearly see that the centers are open, but you can't find anything written. I even talked about the limitations I faced, the challenges I faced as a researcher. One of the major issues I faced is, like, you can't find records kept somewhere. That's what I think. Even the criteria are not there to be seen. So this can be added on the recommendations that the centers should to clarify what they look at when they want to enroll a given candidate. And now the last question that was asked on whether the introduction and the conclusion seem to be conflicting. One is about more English, and then the last one is Kinyarwanda, more Kinyarwanda. I don't think that's how it is, because in the introduction you will find that the introduction is tackling different languages. There is this English as a medium of instruction since 2008, and French before 1994 genocide against the Tutsi here in Rwanda, and of course the relevance of teaching languages in general. Then the conclusion, the fact that you have seen Kinyarwanda coming there in the conclusion, it's because Kinyarwanda is being the only language that connects all Rwandans, because wherever you are in this country, any corner you can go to, you will find that Kinyarwanda is the only language everyone can speak, and everyone knows it. And it's the only language that you need to use as a tool to communicate to Rwandans. That's why it came there, and I guess it is on this slide of recommendations. It came there to be stressed so that international students can be given space to learn this language, because they, apart from being on the campus, they also need to go outside, maybe for sightseeing, maybe for shopping, maybe for other reasons. And the only language that can help them feel comfortable while away from the campus is Kinyarwanda. I guess those are the questions I received, and back to you, facilitators.
Okay, thank you, Jean-Baptiste.
My pleasure.
For the presentation, and also for taking your time to go through the questions asked. I believe that you have found the comments and the questions very useful in reshaping the areas where you might still be lacking while you are writing your thesis, or when you want to publish articles in journal from the work you are doing. And you have also mentioned that it's a work in progress, so we hope that all these comments will be put into use when you are writing the final thesis. We wish you success and happiness in your endeavors.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, have a great day.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Salama. I hand over now to Dr. Aisha is going to finish up. I wanted to find out if Professor Kofo Adregbo is online. If not, then we'll go to the next person. Tedai? How about Mr. Charles Senega? Then we can go to Dr. Tedai Hove. Over to you, Dr. Aisha.
We have in-house. We have a small announcement in-house. Someone has lost their flash, and clarify. Yeah?
I have it.
Okay, so the problem is solved, madam. Another issue of attention. Where far have we gone? In sharing. I have been summoned to be chair, which I gracefully accept, because actually that's one of the things I would like to solve. We are starting to have conference fatigue. And so I would like that we start focusing on finalizing this conference. Even the best dancer leaves the stage. So I am calling upon us to utilize time efficiently so that we soon will hand over to the closing ceremony. And we can then after that debrief and see how to build from what we've been able to achieve because time is limited, we are coming towards the end. So it is now my honor to join the current chair so that we do due diligence as we finalize the remaining presentations. Thank you. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We are here ready for you, but we want to know whether Dr. Tendai is online.
Yes,
Dr.
Tendai is
Tendai,
online.
do we have?
Yes, she's online. I'm online.
Okay, please screen share your presentation and then start immediately. Thank you.
Okay, I was trying to screen share, but seems I'm failing to do that.
You
So can I just go ahead?
You can talk. The research is yours, so that we utilize time efficiently. Thank you.
All right, thank you. My name is Tendai Ziwowe. I'm a PhD student in the Department of History, Archaeology and Heritage Studies. So this paper is part of my research findings, and my topic is the dilemma of the presence of Great Zimbabwe Hotel within Great Zimbabwe cultural landscape. So I'm exploring how the presence of the hotel within the cultural landscape creates conflicts in that area. So in this presentation, I'm going to look at the objectives of the study, the brief background of Great Zimbabwe cultural landscape, the background of people who stayed within the cultural landscape. Then I'll look at the hotel's relationship with the locals and Great Zimbabwe monuments. So my objectives, I would like to explore the evolution of tensions between Great Zimbabwe Hotel and its neighbors, namely the Great Zimbabwe monuments and local community. I also want to explore the patterns and trends of the tensions, and also to examine the impact of the tensions on heritage conservation. So just a brief background of Great Zimbabwe cultural landscape. This is home of the ancestral spirits of Zimbabweans, and almost every Zimbabwean came from this site. So the name of the country was derived from this site, Zimbabwe meaning big house of stones.
Please.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. So it is a revered national shrine, and it is a symbol of the nation, where some of its archaeological features, like the Zimbabwe bed and the Concorde Tower, appear on the national flag and on the national coat of arms. So it has some national significance, and it is a national monument, and was accorded a World Heritage Site status in 1986. So the background of the people who have stayed within the cultural landscape. First, it was occupied by the hunter-gatherers, and they lived a nomadic life and did not alter the landscape. And they were followed by the early farming communities, and these introduced farming and animal rearing within the landscape. So the early farming communities were replaced by the late farming communities, and they built stone structures which are still existing today. And they used the place as a religious center. So they had some sacred places within the landscape, like sacred hills, sacred caves, and sacred springs. Then Europeans came in 1890, and they chased away the late farming communities from the area. So they attributed the stone structures to foreign origin, and they alienated the Africans from this place. And their argument was that these stone structures, the stone structures would not have been built by, such impressive monument could not have possibly been built by Africans. So they alienated the Africans from the landscape, and they were not allowed to be part of the landscape. So some of the things they did, they introduced the golf courses and closed some of the sacred springs, and they introduced the hotel, like the Shepherd's Hotel and the Great Zimbabwe Ruins, the one which I'm looking at. And they introduced the lodges, rendezvous, curio shop, and planted some exotic trees. So they altered the landscape altogether. After independence in 1980, when Zimbabwe got its independence, the Africans reconnected with their heritage. And the monument was placed under National Museums and Monuments of Zimbabwe. So some of the things that the Africans did after this, they removed the golf course and reopened the sacred springs which had been closed by Europeans. But they left the hotel because they felt that the hotel would provide accommodation to the tourists who would visit Great Zimbabwe monuments. But the hotel, it has been privately owned since 1980, since the attainment of independence. So this hotel was put in 1902, and this purpose was to cater for accommodation for Europeans who came to visit Great Zimbabwe monuments. And it was a preserve for Europeans only, and Africans were not supposed to be part of this. They were not allowed to be at the hotel. So the hotel's relationship with the locals after 1980, the alienation continued in the early 1980s, as Africans were not allowed to enter bars or restaurants. They were asked to buy their food through the windows. But the government of Zimbabwe stopped this and also asked them to allow the locals to pass through the hotel going to their homes from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., which is also the same time that they could pass through the monument. But there were changes which were happening due to the management at the hotel. The managers at the hotel were changing from now and again. Like in 2020 up to now, locals are not allowed to pass through the hotel while wearing tattered clothes and sandals, or to wear head wraps for women. So the hotel thinks that this will lower the standards of the hotel. They feel that their hotel is a 3-star hotel, so they feel that if their clients see such kind of people passing through the hotel wearing such type of dressing, they will think that the standards of the hotel have gone down. But now in rural areas in Zimbabwe, this is the kind of clothing that you'd find people wearing, the sandals, head wraps. So they are kind of being alienated from their heritage, the same thing which was happening during the colonial period. So, but the guiding philosophy of heritage management is that the locals should not be alienated from their past. But this is also the same thing that we are seeing happening. So the hotel is kind of a colonial remnant, which is within the landscape. So it's like an island where people cannot reach to. Local communities also complain that they do not benefit anything from the hotel. But when I interviewed the hotel staff, they say that they buy crops and vegetables from the locals. They also provide jobs to the locals, and they also help in firefighting whenever there is a fire outbreak in the local communities.
Yes, hello, Dr. Tendai. Sorry for interruption, but I want to let you know that you need to summarize because you are left with 4 minutes. Thank you.
All right, okay, thank you. I was talking about the local communities in the hotel. So the hotel, they complain that they don't get anything from the hotel, but the hotel says it provides something to the local communities. So spirit mediums also play a crucial role in heritage management and national issues. They also complain about the presence of the hotel within the landscape. They argue that such a business should not be run within the landscape, as this promotes the desecration of the place. So the hotel's relationship with the monuments after 1980, in the 1980s and 1990s, the relationship was good as they were, as the monuments was allowed to leave their vehicles overnight, and also they were allowed to have breakfast and lunch for free. But this changed because of the management which was at the hotel in the year 2000. But this is also maybe because of the economic challenges that the country was facing. So maybe they could not sustain to give people free lunch and breakfast. So in 2010, there were also some changes which happened. National museums and monuments vehicles were not allowed to pass through the hotel, especially those which have a heavy sound like tractors. And school buses going to the monuments were not allowed to pass through the hotel. So the tensions grew worse between the hotel and the monuments. They grew worse when the executive director of National Museums and Monuments was denied entry by hotel security guards in 2014. So he was, the NMMZ staff then retaliated by closing one of their gates. For one to get to the hotel, they have to pass through the monuments gate because the hotel is inside the monuments. So which means there's one gate which was left, which is open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And this meant that the hotel could not get their clients after 6 p.m. And their clients also would not leave the hotel before 6 a.m. So this was going to run down the business of the hotel. So the hotel now was worried about losing clients, and they became cautious of how they treated national museums and monuments. So the relationship has grown to be that of a landlord and a tenant, where the monuments is the landlord and the hotel is the tenant. So the other thing which is also worrying about the presence of the hotel within the landscape is the impact it has on heritage conservation. There are so many structures which they are built in the hotel, so there's a lot of digging which is involved, which means they will disturb the archaeological artifacts lying beneath. And according to National Museums and Monuments of Zimbabwe Act, no digging is allowed without the authorization of the executive director. So, which means the hotel is overriding this law. And the other thing which is also worrying about the structures is that they have an impact on the viewscape of the Great Zimbabwe Monuments. Great Zimbabwe Monuments is supposed to remain a bush area. It is supposed to remain as authentic as possible. So this is the kind of thing that we see where they affect the viewscape of this cultural landscape of this revered national shrine. So just to conclude, the hotel is more concerned about its clients, and many people, the local community, spirit mediums, heritage managers, they feel that this is a colonial relic which should be removed from the monument. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tendai, for that wonderful presentation in form of a story.
Sorry, I'm not a doctor. Sorry.
Okay, Tendai, the PhD student, we thank you for that presentation. I think we need a full book because it seems to be quite an interesting story. So I request anyone to give her any comments. You are welcome. We shall welcome only 2 comments in the interest of time from the audience here. So anyone to comment on her presentation about the relationship between the Great Zimbabwe Hotel and then the Great Zimbabwe Monuments. Thank you.
Tendai, I would like you to proceed very well with your presentation. My memory of Zimbabwe is when my elder brother visited Zimbabwe in the 1980s, and I was just feeding myself on the photographs. Later on, more recently, I've been to Zimbabwe, and I am attached and in line with the story you've provided. This story represents the identity of the African people, how across the span of time, the African people sometimes are misunderstood, misconstrued, and even further marginalized. This seemingly is also a story of racism, and I would like to thank you for bringing to light this story. I have looked at your abstract, and it is my opinion that your research will inform many more people after you. We would like to encourage you to further develop aspects of this story. I am also interested in knowing how this could be related to political science, to performing arts, forum theater, to different liberation movements, but also the story of decolonizing education. We thank you very much. If it's possible, we could proceed to the next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor, for those wise words. So our next presenter is supposed to be Dr. Ateyola. Is she present? Are you present? Are you on the line? Dr. Ateyola, with a presentation on the influence of students' awareness on technology acceptance on Google Classroom among college education students in southwestern Nigeria. If you are not ready, then we shall proceed to Dr. Johnson Oludare. Dr. Johnson Oludare, are you online? Hello, the online community. We are waiting for you, Dr. Johnson Oludare. If not ready, we'll move on to the next, who is none other than Professor Kano Bankole. Professor Bankole, are you ready?
As one of the core organizers of this conference, I have thought about the plan ABC of how to wrap up this conference in a way of making the outcomes of this conference viable. So because of time management across zones and areas, and because of the nature of Zoom, I'm standing in to apologize where it has not been possible to meet your requirements on Zoom. But also I'm pledging that since we have your abstracts, we are ready to receive your papers and review them further. And if there is demand, organize a future seminar where we could further interface with you. But for now, we will make a roll call, and if you are not around, you will excuse us when you miss out. As you are aware, we are celebrating 6 years of NEMRA, and we are unstoppable. There will be many opportunities, not just now, but also in the future. I hope these few words will help my co-chair here to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, for those wise words. So there are different platforms of having your knowledge shared out there, especially with NEMRA. Let me know if Mr. Benon Chabalongo is present. Mr. Benon Chabalongo? Yeah, so let's now move on to Mr. Rabuhinga Richard. Are you present? Mr. Rabuhinga Richard? If he is not available, then we have a team of, I think this paper has been presented in the previous room where I was. Mr. Silas and Dr. Juliet Charin Simila, I think they presented in room 2. So that marks the end of the online presentation. It seems some people are not here. But in case you are there and you are ready, and maybe your name is not here, please, you can let us know if you are ready.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
Jack Mavuga is online and ready.
Proceed, the time is yours.
Thank you, Graf.
Please share your screen and move straight to your presentation. If you don't have the presentation, we can still listen to you and give you our thoughts about your presentation.
All right. Okay. Because of time, I will just dive into the presentation. My name is Jack Mavuka. I'm a student at Nexus International University, and Dr. Salam is my supervisor in this paper. I'll go straight to introduction. The topic of this paper is the role of motorcycle taxi in accessing maternal health services, a case at Nchisu District Hospital in Malawi. So we are saying transport is a game changer in maternal health services because it facilitates access to services during pregnancy, delivery, and postnatal period. The use of such transport is boda and popularly known as Kabaza here in Malawi, which has dominated in many countries, including here in Malawi. Pregnant women and sick people utilize them to access clinics and hospitals. And a study by SAC and colleagues pointed out that motorcycle taxi is used among women in access to transport to access maternal health services. And also Jenkins, in his study, demonstrated that motorcycle taxis have greatly improved access to maternal health care services. Now coming to the problem statement, Malawi has experienced the flourishing of motorcycle taxi. These are popularly known as boda in East Africa. But despite these providing a major transport mode in rural areas, its significance in accessing maternal health services is not known. Therefore, the study sought to explore how does the motorcycle taxi facilitate access to maternal health care services. The study generally seeks to examine the role of motorcycle taxi transport in facilitating access to healthcare during pregnancy, delivery, and the postpartum period. Specifically, the study intends to determine the prevalence of utilization of motorcycle taxis among pregnant women and also identify the drivers of motorcycle taxi use among these women, and lastly, the challenges these women face when using motorcycle taxi. The study used the mixed methods approach where a key informant interview guide was used to gather qualitative data, and the questionnaires was used to collect quantitative data. The study targeted a population of pregnant women and immediate postpartum women. And in this study, immediate postpartum women refers to those women from birth up to 48 hours. The sample size was 200, and which was determined by using a formula by a Japanese statistician Yamane, and the sample was randomly selected for quantitative aspect, and the key informants were purposefully selected. So in terms of inclusion criteria, pregnant, immediate, postpartum women, they are the ones that were included in the study. And those pregnant and postpartum women with obstetric complications, specifically hemorrhage, anemia, and eclampsia, were excluded from the study. And those women that did not give consent to take part in the study were also excluded. In vivo software was used to analyze qualitative data, and the Excel was used for data entry and cleaning, and later exported to Stata version 17 for analysis, and descriptive statistics was used to present averages and percentages. So in terms of results, the study found that 57% of the respondents, they had used motorcycle taxi to access the services, and 15% they walked. And these ones, let's take note, those that walked, it is from antenatal up to postpartum. They never used a motorcycle taxi at any point. And it was also interesting to note that over 64% of the respondents had used the motorcycle taxi more than twice to access the services. On the drivers of motorcycle taxi use among pregnant women, fastness was the chief driver, with 57% of the respondents to have cited fastness as what motivates them to use the motorcycle taxi to access the services. Affordability and readily available were also other drivers for use of motorcycle taxi. In terms of challenges, 22% of the respondents, they had indicated facing challenges in using this boda, and 46% they cited long distance as their primary challenge in using this boda. But also others, they cited expensive fares and the lack of protective gear like the helmets when using this boda. In conclusion, the study concludes that motorcycle taxi use among pregnant women is prevalent in the study area, and at the same time, women utilize boda even up to 8 visits of their pregnancy period. And the study also concluded that availability of Kabaza transport for pregnant women enables access to maternal health services. In the recommendations, the study recommends that there is a need for further research on how to integrate Kabaza in existing community-based maternal and neonatal care programs, because it has shown that boda has the potential to reduce obstetric complications that rise due to problems in timely reaching the facility. That's all. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you.
I would like to volunteer and give thumbs up to you, a round of applause to you by the audience that is here. I'd like to offer myself to give you a few comments. Your study falls in the general field of public health, and for those who are studying about Africa, outside Africa, what they call global health. You remind me about a number of studies that have been undertaken in the Africa region, but also the WHO protocols that already brought out how we could look at maternal and neonatal health. By exploring a period of puerperium, you are doing an amazing job, because those services that are around that time are not so much available, they are neglected. By calling the border, as you know it in East Africa, or the motorcycle, a taxi, you are doing an amazing thing. I think you need to clarify how a border becomes a taxi. Furthermore, you also are touching on the critical aspect of the 3 delays, because the 3 delays have been brought up by a number of scholars. I'm reminded about one from one of my mentors, Kabachenga. For his PhD thesis, he examined the delays at home, the delays between the health facility and the home. I think that is where the motorcycle tries to shorten the delay, and the delays at the health facility itself. We would have liked to learn more about alternative transport means, since you also bring out something that in Uganda we call futubishi, use of feet for movement. Some people call it futubishi. I'm also reminded about when I started working in a university, that some people used to get footing allowances. In line of modernity, therefore, we encourage you to set a pace for a future Africa by showing how we could use alternative means to shorten the distance between the underserved areas and then the health facility. By, for example, why didn't you talk about donkeys? Why don't you talk about other alternative means, and possibly a car or bicycles? There has been, for example, an ambulance in Uganda where people have changed a bicycle into a type of tricycle that has been used in the rural areas. Also, I think it should have been in your interest to try to present how the notorious problem of access to services could be addressed through, in your context, through building more health facilities closer to the people, bringing services nearer to the people. You also do well to explore the possibility of a mobile clinic, since we are in the era of things like such a clinics in Uganda. Medical camps are running the show. I am seeing one of my students here of public health. I think because I am saying even the best dancer leaves the stage, it is my duty to invite him to make a comment as a scholar of public health. Over to you, sir. I'm looking at you. Make a comment, because we are now in class.
Thank you very much for making a presentation. And I got concerned about the maternal complications when you talked about them, that the usage of the borders is reducing the maternal complications. But also, on the other role, I wanted to inquire if you took a responsibility to look at the accident that may be involved by the usage of the borders in these rural villages. As we have witnessed in our Uganda, that people, when you are using a borders, especially here in Kampala, all in the rural areas, you surface a number of the accidents. Yep. And today morning, when I was coming at Mengo, the borders knocked themselves in a junction. So,
And when these borders are riding in the rural areas, they don't care about, because there are less cars there, so they'll just drive rashly. Now, I don't know whether he took note of that too.
I think it is also fair that we allow one or two ladies to comment on this issue, because in general terms, men never become pregnant.
Thank you, presenter, for your presentation. I have a comment on this. Of course, we've seen that the greatest number use the border. And to me, the issue is not the use of the border, but the safety, especially to these pregnant mothers. So would you recommend it from your context and maybe from your government as a recommendable means of transport? If not, what are the other options that you would recommend? Then one of the reasons why they prefer the border is affordability, which takes me to the study population that you looked at. In that particular community, what was the motivation? Is it that you looked at the community where maybe the families are of low income, and because of that they would only afford the border, or your sample size comprised of different economic status from the different women? Because I imagine there may be a correlation between the usage and then the income levels or the economic status. Thank you.
Is there another lady to give a comment? Otherwise, I think you'll allow us to proceed in the interest of time. So over to you, a few comments, and then we can proceed.
All right. Thank you so much for the comments. They are so enriching. The first comment is that, Doc, you commented on the 3 Drays by Thaddeus and Ben, and in fact, the conceptual framework is inspired by the 3 Drays model by Thaddeus and Ben. So the other issue is about border. One of the key speakers noted that is border reducing complications. No, the study is looking at accessibility to maternal health services using border. But there is no, we cannot, the study did not look at the direct relationship between border and reducing complications. So in terms of safety and accidents, yes, indeed, it is one of the key issues surrounding border. But like here in Malawi, a lot of research, a lot of studies were done regarding border, but they are on the negative aspect, like border is a major killer, border draining a lot of resources by treating the casualties. But this study thought of looking at the brighter side of Kabaza, looking at the infrastructure. The transport infrastructure in Malawi is very poor. Many roads are impassable, and the border becomes the common mode of transport that even navigates small routes where vehicles cannot reach those areas. But at the same time, because they are easily accessible and they are convenient, people in the communities can even use a phone call to reach out to border and carry them from their convenient places. And the other issue of socioeconomic status of the participants, yes, indeed, it was this study is done in the rural area, and the district is among the districts where the people are very poor, but at the same time, they rely on subsistence farming. So having the border close by them, it was
so nice, so very creative.
Hello?
Yeah, very creative.
Can I proceed? Yeah, yes. So in terms of economic status, yes, they are poor subsistence peasant farmers, but they are able to afford a border to carry them from their convenient places to access the services. Therefore, I would recommend border to be integrated in the community-based maternal and neonatal care programs in the absence of other formal transport like the ambulance, the minibus, because of poor transport infrastructure. However, under my recommendations, we are also recommending regulation, because this is the business that is not regulated by the government, so that on the policy changes, the government should consider regulating this business so that it becomes safe to all the users. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jack Esau, for responding to the raised comments. So I'll make the last call. In case you are online and you are ready with your presentation, please let us know.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening. This is Dr. Amos.
This is Dr. Amos. Sorry, I was locked out of room 2. I was meant to present in room 2, but somehow my internet disturbed, so I didn't know that room 2 was active. I've been always here in the auditorium following.
We would like to
I have a presentation to make.
We would like to request you to proceed. We would like to request you to proceed and use time efficiently to avoid the brain fatigue. Thank you.
Okay, can I share my slides now?
Please do.
Okay.
Yeah, you can talk through as you screen share.
Okay, I can talk through. Okay. So let me. My slides is.
If you have difficulties in sharing, then you can just present. We are here for you and we are listening very actively. Thank you.
Okay. Can you see it now?
No?
All right, so let me go ahead. Briefly, I have just about 15 slides, short slides, to make on the topic root cause analysis of sustainable housing affordability. My name is Dr. Amos Chom Haruna, a PhD student from Makerere, my PhD graduate. Why am I still seeing myself as a student? Forgive me. I just graduated from Makerere this year, 2024. So I'm originally from Nigeria, lecturer in construction management and built environment.